kind of dove right in. Yeah.
Yep.
I want to take a quote from something that Nora said in one of the pre-recorded videos, that the art of dance is to always find solutions to live. And I feel like part of that action was to say yes to this proposal, even not knowing how it would unfold. What would it be like to transmit your work, to communicate your work to dancers that you have never worked with and that are living in another country? I also want to share something that I read, Nora, that you wrote about your work, that Dark Swan serves as a reminder of how living work lives from one body to another, from one time to another. Can we start from there, about this transmission process? How did you begin to pass from one body to another? If we can start with you, Nora.
Yeah, well, very, very courageously, just dive in head first. You know, there was no time to really worry about, oh my goodness, do they actually know the language, the physical language? Do they have the alphabet? So we just dove in, and then as we started working, it started to emerge that, oh yeah, there are these concerns about where we come from in terms of what kind of practices we have kind of inculcated into our bodies, or learned, or kind of hold, or are driving towards, you know, the practices. You know, so that started to bring up the question that you rightly framed, like, what is the transmission thing like? You know, that you know, we don't speak the same language. We may have the same 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, but we don't speak the same language, and it's important to respect that. It's really important to respect, particularly coming from kind of my orientation, which is not a repertory orientation. You know, I don't come from that tradition. I come from extreme left of left. You know, that work shouldn't be necessarily transmitted. It should be held in the body. So how do you go beyond thinking you're just passing on repertory? You know, like there's no, I don't have a formula for how to do that. You know, so transmission means having to convince whoever is going to do it that they own this, that it's theirs somehow.
Yasmeen, I see you nodding.
Yeah.
Is some of this resonating with how your process unfolded?
Yeah, it really connects to things that I also experienced. Also, starting off, getting Roberto's proposal, I felt like it was almost a reaching out at a time of trouble that I just wanted to respond to, and wanted to, as Nora said, to dive into, without really thinking very deeply what that meant, but wanting to kind of continue the relationship and continue the connection with Bassano and with the people in Bassano, and finding this like opportunity to be a great way, especially given the practice itself of practicing empathy 2 by 2, to reach the people in Bassano through this. But alongside, I didn't really think it through very deeply, and definitely I think that one of the things that came up was I also have a very complex relationship with this notion of repertoire. I feel very often very uncomfortable and want to kind of be there, and I've always found myself rejecting this option somehow. And so like, but in this case, it was something different. It was almost like a moment of holding hands across the the sea and saying, okay, let's do this and figure this out. And immediately it was a yes, but alongside with it, this question of like, things that started to rise up were these questions of where are we coming from in our physical, performative experiences? What are we carrying in our bodies that can enable us to respond to some of these things? And it's always, for me, it was a big, a mirror, because I was also working with my dancers. Were transferring materials that they were also developing in their own bodies. Ari Tepperberg, Nir Vidan, Carmel Ben Asher, and Tamar Kish. So they were, so in a way it was a really interesting mirror to see that and to realize the kind of information that we have found throughout. It was like suddenly we realized the research we went through, that we kind of like took for granted a little bit. Like, and we're like, wow, there's so much there that needs to be shared. That, and then again, like Nora said, like how can this be the experience of the women who are performing this and not what we have? So yes.
I know that both of you worked with dancers. You just mentioned, Yasmeen, dancers from your company, and Nora, you also worked with Macintosh.
Jarahuni, yes.
And what emerged from this relationship of your dancers communicating the dance? Because something about the digital medium or the Zoom medium is that there's a lot that we lose. There's a lot that we're dealing with loss in the touch and presence, but I think there's a lot we've also gained. And I'm curious to hear what came out of the act of articulation from your dancers.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I've been moving far and far away from this language of dancer, choreographer. You know, I don't use this language. It's not mine. I don't find it useful. So in many ways, this medium kind of exacerbated that frustration with the language of experimental dance, which is fundamentally Western. You know, so the relationship that I have with Macintosh is one of co-conspirator or co-diviner. You know, that we've been practicing Naga, not just Macintosh, my entire team that I've been working with. And I work with people over years, you know, I'm really loyal. I hate to like shift, you know, we just go deeper rather than keep changing. So we have a shared language and even maybe sometimes I feel like a shared unconsciousness. So I'm trying to move close to what you actually asked. It's like, so discovering that, as Yasmeen said, that we are really connected in terms of our core language. And it was brilliant to see Macintosh. I became the head, let's say the mouth, and he was the body because I'm in my flat. I have neighbors underneath and next to me who are really resistant to any kind of noise. It's New York. And then he was in the studio in Harare all alone, like we have this 21st century ballet studio in Harare. So he could embody, he could do, and I say more, you know, with, you know, very few times that I could actually, you know, do the work myself. It's very physical and asks for the body to emit sound. You know, so this is what we discovered, that we could separate church from state. That we could have these body parts, you know, working in different hemispheres. You know, it's an interesting discovery as much as is, you know, I don't want to say it's a loss because for some reason it really made us connect even more. We were rendezvousing twice a week, you know, with the dances in Bassano. So it was Brooklyn, Bassano, Harare. You know, just a kind of immaculate conception, you know, the the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So that's what I think you know, I may want to kind of hold on to, this unconsciousness and the fight to kind of articulate it, or to rise it, to rouse it, to rise it in the dances. You know, to kind of try and connect, you know, nano, my brain to your brain, or mostly my heart to your heart, kind of thing. I probably didn't answer the question, but yes.
No. It's I'm glad you flipped it and took it to another level, because I was thinking simply from this place of how we're perhaps used to working inside of a studio where we're all feeling each other's bodies and sweat and breath, and you took it to this other level, which I really appreciate. And Yasmeen, does any of this activate what your process sounded like, or what did you tap into to emerge this experience?
Well, one of the things that I've kind of discovered in this period, also I was teaching a workshop last week via Zoom, and one of the things that I discovered is that there's something that was helpful to gather in the studio. Actually, we can meet in the studio here. At some point we could, and then to actually be with each other in real time together is like a community while we're transmitting or sharing, or because there's something so lonely about this experience that although it allows you to do that, it allows you in a way to, but then again, I can relate to also this, what Nora said in the way that I couldn't do it alone. Like it wasn't about me transmitting, transferring the information. It was about a community, about a group of people who are working together, who are sharing information, who are adding to this like complex puzzle that I almost, and this was my biggest discovery, was that it's almost like I know this, but it made it more concrete that it's beyond me, and it's more about this group of people that is engaged in transmitting information or sharing an experience, having that experience here while that experience is happening there. So it's almost like the limitation or the situation that we cannot be there actually strengthened the sense of common support and neediness that we have between each other.
Yeah.
And that's really something strange, because like logically you wouldn't, I didn't think that that's necessarily where that would go, but I felt even more dependent somehow.
Yeah. I would echo that and just say, you know, the primacy of the body as an organism, as a living organism that you give stimulus to, verbally or through gesture, and then other bodies pick it and react to it. I mean, this is something really, I think, profound, and not just because I'm an animist, but I feel like that's kind of the one way to look at it, that I could, you know, have courage and try to use all kinds of metaphors, but knowing and relying on the fact that the bodies who are on the other end are living organisms. They're not dead, you know. So information can get in and be articulated and animated in ways that that organism is capable of at the time. So, you know, the absence of studio and stuff, like we work so really like, you know, like this in spaces of practice, And you know, the sweat kind of carries information that those bodies in proximity with you also kind of receive, and you'll start to breathe, you know, in the same way. But I think there is something beautiful about thinking also of these this consciousness that you can arouse and kind of sense through these electric ways and kind of stimulate something to happen. You know, of course, I think we need more time with this medium to discover, like we were learning that, you know, the flatness of the camera almost deadens us again to kind of the point of a proscenium stage, like it's just, you know, one point of view, like the king's point of view. And the question of space, the depth, horizontal, vertical, you kind of have to recalibrate, where is it? We discovered later in the game that we should have been using more cameras.
Yeah.
You know, spread all over, high, low, near, far, that would have allowed Macintosh and I to kind of see what is really happening in the bodies of the people we're working with, as opposed to half the time, you know, seeing bodies in shade or out of frame, not in the frame, too close to see or too blurred. Like these are things that are, you know, I think we walk away having some awareness of the technical ways in which the camera eye is such a dictator. To me, it just feels like, you know, not malleable. And so I would like to return to this assignment again and be able to figure out how to work with the medium. You know, as I think, and I will shut up now, I was really so concerned about the language, you know, building the alphabet, the lexicon, and getting bodies who don't move in my way to move towards what I'm asking. And I spend less time thinking about the, you know, the how it would be received, which is through the digital media. I think more time could have been spent on that, really.
Before I come to you, Yasmeen, I just want to let the audience know that we're going to open it up to the Q&A in a moment. So in a couple moments, what you would do is you would just click on the little hand at the bottom of the screen if you want to come on camera, or you can type into the Q&A box your question. So if you have a question, prepare that. I'm going to pass to Yasmeen. If you were to return to this assignment, what would you want to activate? Or how would you maybe approach it if you were?
I want to respond a little bit to some of the things that Nora mentioned, because yes, I really relate to this notion of the camera as a dictator. I think I need it. There's a need for a presence of another eye to be in the space of making work, and that's something that I've discovered in the last few weeks, where I was teaching a workshop and there was a cameraman who could actually transfer and transport. And of course, he's making choices of how to look at the work, but at least it wasn't this static, stable camera that was limiting my way of entering. Alongside with that, I want to say that one of the things that I went out with in my exploration of practicing empathy was to create practices that could be easily transferred, because my work, my tendency, I've always been very interested in layering and in complexifying, and somehow I've been wanting to be able to create works that could be easily learned by people who are not necessarily professional performers, dancers, or people who work with their bodies, and could be transported through performers or non-performers. And so in that way, the inability of the Zoom to give me the full feeling was also a place of the letting go and the trust that I'm trying to build for sharing things that are, I mean, they may appear simple, they could seem like a simple proposal. Ultimately, whatever's happening inside a person and between people is going to complexify that. But somehow in this kind of primitive way of looking at a screen, I mean, this very, very limiting.
Frontal.
But it's funny because it's like the most contemporary, but you feel how it's hasn't still been researched or developed. Yeah, frontal and flat, and so I felt within that maybe I could also let go of some of my need to know everything. To know as I do usually in a studio, and to kind of like almost enter a zone where I'm able to let go of more, which is what I'm asking of myself within these processes of letting go and inviting audiences in and losing control. And so maybe it's making it more extreme, this experience. What do I take away from it? I'm still learning, but definitely this idea that while something is happening via the camera in another place, there is still something happening on the other side, perhaps with the group of people, with the bigger kind of team that is perhaps also experiencing something in real time, so that there's this echoing back and forth of information.
Yeah,
I just want to let the audience know that if they want to ask a question or do the hand, you have 7 more minutes to do that if anyone wants to. Otherwise, we'll stay in dialogue here. Continue, Nora, please.
Sorry, I was going to say there's something around the authorship, like concerns of authoring. As you say, you know, something is happening with that group. So my group was experiencing a kind of intimacy, and they were in cahoots with each other, and we could tell, Macintosh and I, that they've worked on this phrase and this is what they decided, you know, to do. And in some ways having to kind of respect that, like, okay, you've decided as a group, as a community, that this is where we're going to go with this language or with this accent, which wouldn't necessarily would have been my choice. So I guess, you know, a question of authoring and some letting go of I don't want to say power, but I guess it is some power, and I guess I feel that very profoundly, because I always am working from my body as a Black body and being asked to surrender agency, you know, almost at every turn. You know, so it's not an easy one, that one, to deal with, but it is also what it is. You know, the unwillingness to surrender agency, and yet, you know, there we have it. Yeah, I had some other thoughts, but it disappeared.
Right when you said intimacy at the beginning came a question of, hello everyone, what is your relationship with intimacy in this way of working? Who wants to take that one?
Well, you know, I mean, the body, we work with the body. I mean, how much more intimate can you be? You know, it's so I, you know, decided to call the work a virtual study, because it just seems to me like all these kind of virtual sex things that people have, you know, like it's so kind of without any of the funk. I just didn't have any of the funk of when you're that intimate, you know, like you can't touch, like, you know, you can't avoid all these gestures of what trying to get in there, and like, no, you should move this way, you know, like so yeah, of course, I think this Zoom thing doesn't allow, I mean, we have social distancing, so the Zoom kind of echoes the time that we're in of like this physical distance, whilst as people who work with the body as the primary matter, I think intimacy is so essential, both physical and spiritual. Like we need to have an intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And Yasmeen, how did you have a sensation of intimacy across this Zoom? And if yes, where did it show up?
What's interesting is that I just thought about it, that it was like speed dating in that sense, like just continuing Nora's, in the sense of like, okay, now we start a process and let's start, you know, like there's no warming up into it. And in that sense, like it required almost, I found myself at some point being more animated. And of course you see yourself, I don't have a mirror in my studio, and I'm seeing, you can neutralize this aspect, I guess, but you're seeing yourself, you know, thinking with your body, with people, and trying to transfer this visceral qualities that you're searching for, and to the point that you're, I don't know what, but like you're trying to almost like break apart this medium to go through, that it does become super intimate. I don't see myself as when I'm working in the studio, I don't have this reflection back on me, and I also, it was when I said speed dating, I meant that there was also this requirement to immediately find intimacy, to be able to share this, because we're not just hanging out in the studio together, having a coffee, and then slowly finding our way into like conversing about things, and then finding the process in our bodies together. I mean, it's like, it's almost like another kind of intimacy. Of course, it became more verbal, maybe more gestural. We, you know, I found myself also dependent. For example, Giovanna, who is the rehearsal director, very dependent on her, having this super intimate relationship with her about discussing the work, becoming such a close collaborator during this period without having known each other before, and in that way. And so, yes, it became almost very, very intimate, but in almost crossing very quickly into it, in a way that was new for me, in a way that often goes through many different processes until I get to that point, until I allow for that kind of dependency, interdependency, etc., of creation, of creativity, and sharing time.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's already the end of us sharing time in this moment here now. I'm sure there will be more moments of sharing time.
Amazing.
It goes so fast. But I want to invite the audience to stay with us. Coming up will be some short films. We've got Umbrella Dance for Hong Kong, and right after will be Please Watch After the Credits as well by Jakivis Thompson, and we will speak live with Jakivis shortly after.
Can I just say I watched my dancers dance the Dark Swan in the park. You rocked it, guys.
They were great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. One last comment from a guest. Many thanks for the conversation. It resonates so powerfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Yasmeen.
Thank you.
Thanks, great.
Ciao.
Next time. Bye.
Bye. Ciao.
Ciao.